Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery who I've reviewed a couple of things from, but I don't in truth get to do all that many reviews from these guys because they don't release all that much through Systembolaget. So when I saw this beer released at the start of November 2019 I was kind of quite excited about it actually because I always enjoy doing reviews from them. So for this review then we are going to return to Hyllie Bryggeri in Malmö. And we're going to have a look at a special version of the Hyllipan, which as I mentioned to you was released at the start of November 2019 through the local and small assortments in Systembolaget. So this one is the Hyllipan Apelsin, which comes in at 6.5% ABV, a special version of the Hyllipan IPA, which you would have seen me review maybe 2 years ago or something like that, and it's got a little bit of orange added to it this time, so I'm really curious to see how this turns out. I've always been a huge fan of the orangey IPAs, you know, Amarillo for a long time was one of my favourite hops. These days you've got other orangey hops in there, you know, Pacifica, is it Waimea or Waimea, sorry, from New Zealand, Mandarin Bavaria, Sabro, Mosaic, Azaka. You've got all of these different orangey hops that have come up since then, so you know, if you find beers with those hops in it, no doubt I will be very curious to review those ones. But this beer, it was really, the original Hyllipan was really interesting. It was like a very kind of, it was almost like one that I felt would have won like a homebrewing competition. Like it was a very nostalgic sort of Citra Simcoe USO 5 IPA actually, so I'm really curious to see how they've done with this one, especially since they've probably played with it over the last couple of years actually. So hopefully this is another good beer and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. This is one of the ones that I was really very curious about when I put in my Christmas beer order through Systembolaget, so we'll see how we get on. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Hyllie Bryggeri before. Hopefully I can review more from these guys at some point in the near future. I do hope they start releasing more regularly, but I've heard they do plan to do that next year. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Hyllie Bryggeri. So Hyllie Bryggeri basically started off as the home brewing experiments of Michael Nathorst, who is from Vintria, which is a few minutes to the south of Hyllie in the southern part of Malmö here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. So, for a number of years he was a home brewer, and basically he built up his own brewery in his garage, and this is where he was experimenting with different beers along with his friends. But he started brewing in his garage around 2013. But he's worked for a number of years in the plumbing industry, and for a period of time he was working 4 days as a plumber and 1 day with the brewery, just to kind of get the beers out there a little bit. But he's also good friends with Torsten Enke, who is the original owner of Beer Ditch in Malmö. It's since changed ownership to somebody else. But when Beer Ditch began, Michael decided to turn his garage into a kind of brewery into like a proper company, and he registered Hyllie Bryggeri in 2015 as an official company with the Swedish government. But in 2019 the brewery joined forces with Psycho Pipes and Limhamns Brewery to form a new company that owns a brewery building, and this is where the three companies are now going to brew their beer. So they've got a 1,000 litre brew kit, and they're hoping to open up a tasting bar at some point in the near future with the brewery as well. So hopefully I can go along there at some point and have a look at it actually. That's definitely something that I would want to do when it happens actually. So I think they opened up that building only in June, so hopefully within maybe at the start of next year or something like that, maybe next summer, because quite often the Swedes open things in the summers. Maybe next summer we will see a little tasting room open up at the new building with Hyllie and Limhamns and Psycho Pipes. I've never actually tried anything from Psycho Pipes. I've seen their beers on tap and things a few times, but I've actually just never tried one of them, so I will need to see if I can let's see if we might just need to talk to them and see if I can get a bottle or something like that to review for you here on the channel. I don't like asking for beer, but maybe that's something I need to do, because I have heard good things about Psycho Pipes actually. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about Hyllie Bryggeri for the moment. They've produced somewhere in the region of like 30 or 40 different beers from what I remember, and they're all a variety of different styles. But from what I remember, the ones that I've reviewed for it was the Hyllipan, which like I said is a really nice kind of nostalgic West Coast type IPA. I did an Imperial Stout which was called Midnight Something, which was a collaboration with Brggeri up in Landskrona. That was a really nice beer as well, and now this one will be my third review involving them, but hopefully there will be many more coming more regularly over the next couple of years actually, especially now that they've got their own kind of bigger brewery facility, if you like. So yeah, if you want to learn more, check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages to see all the different things that Hyllie Bryggeri have produced so far, and hopefully we see more of those in bottles over the next little while. So yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So as you can see, this one, the artwork on this is very kind of similar to what you get from the Hyllipan. The Hyllipan, if I remember correctly, is a sort of medium forest limey green type colour, but this symbol, of course, of the Hyllie Bryggeri is the famous Hyllie water tower. Very distinctive. There's one of those in Landskrona as well, actually, that's very similar. The Swedish water towers are quite like that, apart from the old ones at the astronomy department here at Lund University, where I was doing a lot of stuff before. We had one that was very, very old, and they put an astronomy observatory on the top of it, but then the wind kind of destroyed it. But yeah, there you can see plain black bottle cap on this one. It would actually be really cool, you know, if they made this, if they got bottle caps that were black or white indeed and put that on the top. It would be nice to see them with their own bottle caps. But it tells you on the side here, this one is a 6.5% IPA in the West Coast style, dry hopped with Citra and Mosaic, and it's got an extra twist of oranges to it. Apelsin. Yeah, so if you're just learning Swedish, that is a word that will probably confuse you. Apple, because Äpple, Apelsin, you know, oranges and apples. So, or the other way around. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the taste. And I'm really curious to see how this one turns out. Hopefully, this is very similar to the just a more orangey version, as I say, of the original Hyllipan. If I remember rightly, though, the original Hyllipan had Citra and Simcoe in it. Or was it might have been Citra and Amarillo, but Mosaic, of course, has kind of taken over as the orangey hop. Amarillo, you don't see that used all that often anymore. It's the same with kind of Simcoe and Galaxy, to be honest. Galaxy seems to have replaced Simcoe as the more kind of passion fruity hop. But I mean, yeah, I'm sure it'll still be a good beer anyway. So yeah, as you can see with this one, it's poured exactly as you would expect from a West Coast beer. This one is more, it's kind of in the middle of being orange and more golden, if you like. There's a solid half finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head on this one. Maybe, yeah, definitely a perfect white head on there. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the bottom of the glass there, but you can see a few little bubbles just making their way up towards the bottom of that head there. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is a degree of transparency to this beer, but of course with the West Coast IPAs, you'll always get a little bit of haze, but nowhere near as much as you'll get from the New Englands, of course. But yeah, pretty much what you would expect from a West Coast type IPA, this beer. So let's take a look at the aroma then and see how we go on. Nothing overly surprising about the appearance of this particular beer. Oh yeah, that smells nice. Now, I've been complaining on the channel for a wee while about how many New England IPAs there are and that I've been missing the West Coast IPAs. So as always, do keep your recommendations of West Coast IPAs coming in, because I love reviewing those alongside the New Englands. But again, you know, this is one of these beers where you smell it, and I said the same thing about the original Hyllipan. You smell this beer and it takes you back to, like, you know, 2012, 2013, when I was just starting to get into beer, and I'm sure I said at the same time, I'm sure they confirmed it later actually, I'm sure it was Michael came over the thing and said you were right about there being US-05 yeast in this. I don't know if they'll still be doing the same with that now, but the original Hyllipan had US-05 yeast in it. And it was just a very kind of nostalgic beer. It was very kind of straight up. It didn't try to do anything overly complex, but it just did it very, very well. And I've got a feeling that this beer will be kind of somewhere along the same lines. I keep getting these little fruit flies when I drink beer. It's annoying. But yeah, But with this beer, straight away, you can smell the nice kind of bready and biscuity malt base in there. There's maybe a little bit of a sweet caramel to it, but I think it's more kind of biscuity, but that smooth bready note in there. I wouldn't be surprised if it's probably a mixture of American and German malt that they're using in here. There is something that's telling me there's a bit of an almost Weirman smoothness to this actually. There's a little bit of a kind of that nice smooth bready note, but you've also got a little bit of a sweet biscuity note, a little bit of caramel coming out of it as well, but the caramel I don't think is too prominent in this one. You can smell the oranges in this. The oranges come out as actually almost quite sharp, to be honest with you, and probably it's just because the beer is quite fresh, but at the same time you've got nice elements from the hops as well. You can pick up a good little bit of that floral aromaticity. I'd be interested to know whether they've used another hop as the kind of bittering hop for this one, because there's something too that's telling me that there's a bit of noble hop or something like that in here. It could be a little bit of like Columbus or something like that too. But really you will notice as soon as you go into the aroma of this one, the oranges are very kind of pungent in this beer. But yeah, definitely the green side of the hops I think leans more towards the grassy side of it. There is a little bit of floral quality in there too. But what you have to remember is when you add fruit into a beer, it's always going to affect, on the palate at least, it's always going to come out around the edge of your tongue, which I think suppresses a little bit of the IBUs of the beer. So I think this one will be a little bit less bitter than the original Hyllipan. But the oranges come out straight away. You can smell a little bit of the lighter tangerine notes from the mosaic, and there's also a little bit of the mango in there from the citra as well, and maybe even a little bit of like lychee. Citra of course will give you a good few complexities like lime, lemon, lychee, sometimes gooseberry as well, and to me there's just a little bit of a lychee-ish gooseberry note kind of hiding in there as well, but mainly it's the oranges that jump out of this one at you straight away, which is kind of interesting. It almost smells like some of these orange cakes that you get in Sweden, and I've always said that since I've lived here. You know, it surprises me that there's not more Swedes have cases of diabetes. If you see the cakes and stuff and you go to Hemmakväll and things like that, the Swedes eat very healthily, but they do like their beer, they do like their cakes, and they do like their candy. So it's kind of it's quite interesting actually. But this beer really reminds me of some of these cakes that you'll find in the Swedish bakeries actually. But I really, when you open it up, you will get that nice kind of West Coast IPA vibe. I noticed the kind of biscuity, brown, sugary notes coming out of this as soon as we opened it up. But yeah, definitely a little bit of a nostalgic beer for me, this one. It's almost, but this one a little bit more pungent in its orangey, fruity notes. But yeah, without further ado then, let's have a taste of this and see how we get on. So as I always say, take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer. But this one is the Hyllipan Apelsin from Hyllie Bryggeri in Hyllie in Malmö, just here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. I'm really looking forward to this. A 6.5% IPA. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. Yeah, that's pretty nice, I have to say. It is quite fresh, this. You can tell straight away it is pretty fresh. I maybe should have left this another week or something like that. Just you can really feel how fresh this is actually. I always feel if you drink beers like too fresh, sometimes the flavours don't quite mellow out in the way that they would if you like. But it still comes across as a very, very nice beer. I think I caught the Hyllipan before, right just in its kind of prime, but this is, I really quite like this beer. It gets a thumbs up from me again. As I always said though, remember when I get an orangey IPA in front of me, 9 times out of 10 I'm probably going to like it. But yeah, I think this is nicely done. What I would say, first impressions then, it does kind of draw the line. It's more of a regular West Coast IPA than it is a fruit IPA, because I find quite often when when grapefruit and stuff is added into IPAs, sometimes the grapefruit can overpower it. This one, the oranges are quite strong, but it's still, the IPA side of the beer does still hold its ground quite well. As I say, I've seen some IPAs and things recently, particularly the Garden of Sweden that I had from Toul recently. I think the fruits just took over that beer a little bit, but this one I think seems to find quite a good bit of balance. But the oranges do have a good little bit of strength in there too, and they complement the hops quite well actually. So keep that in mind when you try this beer. Yeah, that is good. So let's try and break down the flavour of this one a little bit. So straight away across the middle of the palate, you're going to get that nice kind of bready malt base there, and you can feel that it sort of smooths out a little bit the further you're going to go into the aftertaste. And the middle of your palate does dry out a little bit too, but as you go more towards the centre of your tongue, you're going to get some of the sweeter caramelly notes there. Those will be the thing that's kind of covering up the booze. But as you come further out from the centre of your palate, that's when you start to get a nice biscuity sweetness to this one too. But the fruity oranges, the orangey notes in this beer are kind of starting to encroach a little bit in the malt base in this one as well. So yeah, it's interesting that. It's interesting how it goes together. But like I said, with the original Hyllipan, it was a beer that didn't try anything too fancy, but it was just very well crafted, and I think this beer sort of follows that same light, basically. It follows that same kind of pretense. Yeah. I think this is one of these ones that's just, it's well done. It's not doing anything crazy or anything like that. It is just a nice, well-crafted beer, actually. Yeah, have a go at this one for yourself and see what you think. Like I said, though, I've got a feeling that the original Hyllipan used, I'm sure it was using either, I want to say Simcoe. I'm almost like 80% sure Simcoe, but there's something in my head that says it might have been Amarillo, to be honest with you. But I'm more leaning towards Simcoe, so I'm pretty sure they have changed one of the hops in this. And I would guess if they're using Mosaic instead of Simcoe, it's probably to match the oranges a little bit better. That would be the reason for that. So yeah, keep that in mind with this beer too. With the hoppy side of things then, at the back corners of the palate you can get a little bit of earthiness, and that I think is the Mosaic that's going to give you that. But if they have used like Columbus or something, and I've got a feeling they might have, just from the way the floral character is in this beer, but if they've used Mosaic and Columbus in this beer, that would explain why you've got that little bit of dark earthiness there. But as you come further forward along the palate, you can feel the earthiness just kind of dies away a bit, and then at the front corners of the tongue you start to get quite a nice kind of floral, spicy aromaticity. Then round the front curve of the palate you can feel some of the kind of grassy notes as well. But like I said, because this beer has orange in it, the orangey, the fruity qualities are sort of drowning out some of the IBUs a little bit in this one. And this beer, it almost comes across, it's like if you think about if you drink grapefruit juice, and it's not quite sour in the same sense as like a sour beer is, but the oranges in this beer are giving you that sort of almost fruity sourness. You do have a good bit of that in this beer, and you can feel that pushing back against the floral aromatic qualities and also some of the grassiness in there. So this one is not going to have as high an IBU, but it's kind of compensated for by the almost sour qualities that you get out of the fruit. But it's an interesting one, this. I like beers that make you think a little bit about what's going on, and they've certainly pulled that off again. Yeah, those orangey notes, they come across, it's almost like pine resin, how that flavour is. It's almost like a kind of minty freshness, that feeling you get from toothpaste, if you like. The oranges in this one really have a bit of that kind of big citrusy, zesty kind of quality. That's probably the good way to describe it. They said it on the bottle, citrusy zest. You really get that kind of freshness around the edge of your tongue too, which kind of compensates for some of the IBUs in the beer, actually. And you do get some hops that will give you a little bit of an almost minty impression, and that's why the sort of toothpastey analogy that I was using came to mind there. So this beer really has that kind of fresh, zesty kind of quality to it as well, which is quite interesting. Behind the front curve of the palate though, that's where you'll get that little oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters come out from that have been extracted from the hops. And again, this beer is quite interesting in that regard as well. So yeah, in that part of the beer, you can definitely, if you go towards the back of the tongue, you can pick up a teeny little bit of an almost grapefruity note, which will be coming from the Citra. The Citra, depending on what malts and stuff you mix it with, it will give you a little bit of a grapefruity impression. It's maybe more of a passion fruit, to be honest. It's not quite dark enough to be grapefruit. But as you come further forward from that, you get a little bit of mango in there, but then very quickly the beer evolves to be that sort of juicy tangerine note, and moving forward on the tongue, it definitely leans more towards that orangey note, but then again you'd expect that when the beer is called Apelsin, when it's called basically Hyllipan orange. So yeah, this beer, it's kind of one that it does what you'd expect it's going to do, but it's got a nice little bit of complexity in it underneath, and as a sort of big beer nerd as I probably am, this is one that really does kind of make me think, because obviously my natural reaction to this is to compare it to the original. Which is again quite an interesting exercise, but I like what they've done with this. I can see why this one would be quite popular at Christmas and things. You know, this is a beer that would go with it would go really well with like a nice kind of pork meal or something like that. Yeah, probably more pork than beef or anything. I think this is a good beer to go with pork and stuff like that, to be honest with you. So keep that in mind when you buy this. Like if you see this beer around, get it and have it with some nice German sausages or a nice pork joint or something like that. Pork, of course, is very popular in Denmark and here in Sweden to some degree as well. But yeah, I really like how this one goes together. It gets a thumbs up from me. The question would be, do I prefer it to the original? I'm not sure about that. The original beer was like, when I tried it, it was like a really, really nostalgic beer for me, and that was one of the big things about it. I'm sure I've had it on tap actually at one point in tap room, Malmö Brewing Company as well, and that's just a beautiful beer. But yeah, it would be really, I'm not sure, I really don't know about this. I think I probably am leaning a little bit more towards the original, but I think this is a very interesting sort of Christmas twist to give this beer, so I'll give them credit for that actually, but I don't know whether I would pick this one over the original, to be honest. Just an interesting point to make in this video, but it's still a very, very solid beer, this, and I do think, I would need to check that, but I do think they've changed Simcoe to Mosaic in this one, or Amarillo, but I think it's more likely Simcoe. But yeah, this is a nice IPA, and as I always say, it is cool to review different things from Hyllie Bryggeri as well. These guys are a solid brewery in my opinion, and I really look forward to trying a few more things from them, hopefully over the next year in 2020. I really look forward to that. In terms of the mouthfeel of this one then, I would say mid-bodied beer, I think, yeah. Yeah, mid-bodied beer. Carbonation is very smooth. It's got a good balance in its mouthfeel between being oily and a little bit wetter. I think it really does find a good balance there. In terms of IBUs, I think we're talking about 60-ish with this one, maybe 50 or 60 IBUs. I think it would be I think it would be a little bit higher, but I think the oranges give the beer a bit more of a kind of zesty freshness type thing, rather than the IBUs being a little bit higher. I think the oranges do suppress that a little bit. But the malt base is very smooth, it's got a nice little bit of sweetness to it. The further you go into the aftertaste with this one, the brown sugars, the sort of caramelly note in this beer pushes its way out a little bit more. But it's more of a biscuity caramel, I would say. You do get the sweetness out of the malt base a little bit more later in the flavour of this one, and that sort of orangey freshness is sitting around the edge of your palate as well, along with some of the floral aromaticity. And I think some of the floral qualities in this one, to me, they're almost a little bit spicy, which does make me think they might have used Columbus as a bittering hop, or Tomahawk or something like that. Tomahawk's quite similar, of course, but yeah, it does have that nice typical West Coasty bitterness to it as well. So if, like me, you are a fan of the West Coast IPAs, you can't go wrong with this one or the original Hyllipan, which is regularly available in Systembolaget, incidentally. But yeah, nice little bit of hoppy bitterness in there. The malt base, as I say, well balanced between being smooth and a little bit sweet, and you've got a nice, interesting fruity quality to this one. Quite fresh, but you've also got a little bit of the oily fruity notes from the you've also got those oily fruity notes from what's come out of the hops as well. So yeah, a really interesting beer, this one. Like I said, I was really quite excited to review this one when I saw there was going to be another Hyllie Bryggeri beer, and it hasn't disappointed. It really hasn't. This has been a nice beer to try, and I do look forward to trying more from these guys over the next little while. So yeah, let's just leave it at that for this one. This one is the Hyllie Bryggeri's Hyllipan Apelsin. A nice kind of Christmas take, if you like, on their Hyllipan IPA. So hopefully, as I say, we see more beers from these guys over the coming year. I'd love to see how they would do with like a Scotch ale and a New England IPA. Some German style beers from these guys would also be very interesting, because I've seen that they are good when it comes to imperial stouts and IPAs, so hopefully we can see a few more kind of quirky things from them over the next year or so. But yeah, cool to return to this brewery after a little while, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this beer as well. So we'll leave it at that. Once again, thank thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from the Hyllie Bryggeri as well. And I'm sure we'll return to these guys over the next few months. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys very soon. The Hyllipan Apelsin from Hyllie Bryggeri in Hyllie, Malmö, here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Slange, skål, cheers.